What is up, Smudge Wellness? It's your girl, Jazmin Kylene. I am a spiritual counselor. I am a journalist. I am a human being on a floating rock. I hope you are well, or as well as anyone can be surviving this Mercury retrograde. I literally, in all of my years, honey, I have never experienced a retrograde quite like this one. I am still alive yet barely breathing, and I'm sure that in some ways you are too, so know that we are in it together. But I'm coming to you live, or well, this isn't live, but here I am today to talk a little bit about intuition. So this is such an important topic, I think, because when we are in a healthy state and when we have a healthy relationship with our intuition, we are essentially coming back to our most primal form of self. Honestly, like if I could put anything in an immediate sentence, to have a healthy intuition is to return to self. When we are in our most primal states, we have a healthy intuition. This is because the people, the humans that occupied the lands before us, the lands that we live on today, you know, their form of survival was based on their innate instinct and their ability to trust their intuition, right? They survived on inner knowings. They survived on simply trusting themselves, and though they probably didn't have the verbiage to define that, that has everything to do with having a healthy relationship with your intuition, because essentially when you are in a healthy place with your intuition, you know that you are your own best source of counsel. You're never guessing or second guessing or questioning your own gut instinct and inner knowing. You're simply moving, being led by body, and that's something that I think cannot be learned. I think that sometimes when we think, oh, you know, how do I build a healthy relationship with my intuition? How do I become more intuitive, more in line with myself? We think that there are tools outside of ourselves that we have to build or sort of like nurture, but the truth is that coming back to that state is not finding or becoming anything, but rather undoing so much conditioning that has even led you to question yourself and disconnected you from already innately being aware of your inner wisdom. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of ways, a handful of ways, 7. I'm going to talk about 7 different ways that you can tell whether or not you are in an off-kilter place with your intuition, and sort of plant some seeds of how you can sharpen that relationship. Because the truth is, I think, you know, our inner compass always has our best interest in mind. Our inner compass is always going to get us exactly where we need to be, and our intuition sees much, much, much further than the veil that our ego sort of stops at, right? So it's really important to have a healthy intuition and to be in that state of groundedness, be in that state of trust within oneself. Because when we look up the definition of intuition, it says the ability to understand something instinctively without the need for conscious reasoning. And I think that when we begin to put so much thought and so much external outsourcing of worth and validation, we disconnect ourselves from moving with body, we disconnect ourselves from our emotional body, and it becomes this really like discombobulated way of living. It becomes very ungrounded, and honestly that's one of the first signs that you can tell that you're not in a healthy place with your intuition, when you're feeling ungrounded. When we're in a healthy state with our intuition, there's an ease that comes with life, because we know that no matter what, we will always make the right turn, and whatever turn we make is the right one, because we are being led by self. And of course you can have whatever belief system it is that you have, and believe that you're being guided and that you're being led. I mean, of course, that's absolutely my belief system, but the two work hand in hand. Sometimes whatever you define God or your angels or your guides to be, connect and communicate with you through your intuition. It's a matter of paying attention. Just recognizing the fact that you're feeling ungrounded, you're feeling like I can't meditate, I can't stay in a state of feeling at peace or at ease. There's something that is constantly sort of like rumbling under the surface, and that's because when essentially if you have a healthy dialogue with your intuition, you have a healthy, what I was saying is you have a healthy dialogue with yourself. And if you're feeling at all like I'm not comfortable with myself, I'm not really sitting down and listening to myself, I'm overly distracting myself, then you're disconnecting from your intuition, which is the second hint. If you are overly distracting, essentially when we have a healthy relationship with our intuition, we're consistently meditating, we're consistently reflecting, right? We are really being in a state of awareness and hyper awareness of what's going on, what we're processing, and what our subconscious is speaking to us. So if you're distracting yourself, if you're constantly on social media, if you're not taking the time to meditate, if you're always doing something, if you're always surrounded by stimulation, right, whether that's people or technology, you are acting, whether consciously or subconsciously, from a state of discomfort with self. And if you're not comfortable with yourself, if you're not comfortable with your own solitude and the dialogue that's probably happening on autopilot that you'll hear when you allow yourself to quiet the noise of your external environment, you're not in an intuitive space, because your intuition, in order to communicate with you, it needs to be heard. And if it can't make it past what your ego is sort of like setting up to keep itself safe and familiar, you're not going to be able to have that connection. So distract yourself a little bit less. Of course, I think it's important to indulge in the human things that make being human on earth humanly cool, but everything in balance, making sure that there's enough solitude, there's enough quiet time in your day, and there's enough time for reflection. Step away from the stimulation of every single day, especially if you can't really minimize it because of work or whatever the case may be. Allotting, whether it's your mornings or your nights, to just be with yourself, to be in as much quiet as you possibly can make for yourself, and begin to just hear yourself. The next one that I think is probably the most important one is if you don't have a healthy relationship with your fear. And this, ooh girl, the way that this is so important is crazy. So if you are in a state of avoiding looking at your fears, avoiding looking at your triggers, avoiding looking at your wounds, you're disconnected from your intuition. And the reason why is because oftentimes we don't really know when to act on our gut instinct, because we can't decipher the difference between what is my fear's voice and what is my intuition's voice, right? Because fear and ego can kind of sort of form itself to sound and mimic what your intuition is supposed to sound like. Fear can often mimic intuition, pretending that it's protecting us when it's really just anchoring us in a stagnancy that feels safe and comfortable, right? Like, don't do that and don't go there. You know, you think that's your intuition or your gut telling you not to do something, but sometimes that's your fear that is afraid of you taking a leap of faith, or afraid of you exposing a part of you that is that has never been vulnerable before because of a trauma response, or you know what I'm saying? Our fear can whisper thoughts of paranoia and trauma responses into our ears under the guise of intuition. So if you don't allow yourself to familiarize yourself with your triggers, with your wounds, with where your fears stem from, you won't be able to accurately define and recognize what your fear's voice is and what your intuition's voice is. Because if you haven't looked at your fear, how can you know what it sounds like, and how can you know what's distinct from it, from your intuitive voice? I hope that this makes sense. Here I am talking third house stellium. So get to know your fears, your wounds, your triggers, get to know them and familiarize yourself with them on an intimate level so that you'll be able to distinguish their voice from your intuition's voice. And just for some guidance, fear is oftentimes going to come from your head, where intuition is going to come from your heart. Fear is going to make you panic, where intuition sort of like makes you calm and you're knowing. And honestly, fear is incredibly disempowering. It tells you you cannot or you shouldn't. Whereas intuition is very empowering. It tells you you are better than that, or there's something larger for you. You know what I'm saying? Even if intuition is guiding you to go a different way, it's telling you because this way it's better, this way is larger, this way is more aligned. Whereas fear will tell you that place is scary, that place is too much, you're not big enough or capable enough for that place, go this way. So yeah, just build a healthy and intimate relationship with your fear. That's, I think, the most important way to really build a healthy relationship with your intuition, right? It's shadow integration, not shadow work. It's not about ridding ourselves of fear, because we're never, I mean, as humans existing on this planet, we're never going to be rid of fear, nor should we. I think oftentimes our ego can protect us when, I think oftentimes our fear and our egos are only really trying to protect us. It's kind of like that child that's like lost in the grocery store and it's kind of like panicking and like, no, just stay here, this is where it's safe. Whereas if we try to rid ourselves of that kid, we're not actually healing it. It's going to come up in different ways. But if you build a healthy and intimate relationship with it and look at it for where it is and like, well, why is it that I'm scared to put myself out there? Why is it that I'm scared to go to a certain, phase of a relationship? Where does that fear come from? Looking at the root of it is really going to build a healthy relationship with your fear and eventually a healthy relationship with your intuition. Another sign that you are off when it comes to communicating with your intuition is if you are consistently outsourcing your innate and inner wisdom. And what I mean by that is if you don't find that you are your own best counsel, ooh girl. And this can be for the little things, it can be for the medium things, and it can be for the large things. If you can't pick a certain outfit or do a certain thing without consulting your tribe around you first, you're completely disconnected from your intuition. And mind you, for instance, I am like my only source of counsel. Like, I'm known as that person who never asks for advice because I'm so much like, I always know what's best for me. And I think there's a way that I can find myself in a healthy middle ground where I do take nectar from asking people around me how they feel about something. You know, I think that that's important for me to integrate into my life. But being on the polar opposite end of that means that you don't have a healthy relationship with your intuition. You don't trust yourself enough to know what's best for you, whether it is in regards to an outfit or to a relationship choice or to a career choice or something really even larger, right? So little by little, start practicing the act of being your own source of counsel. If there's something coming up in your life and your immediate instinct is to text your best friend or your mom or whoever the case may be and ask them what do they think you should do, reflect on that, reflect on why that is, and reflect on why you don't trust yourself enough to make the right decision, whether that is once again a sweater or a lover. And start practicing little by simply making your own decisions and trusting that your body always knows what's best, and that if a mistake happens, if you make the wrong decision, it's important to come back to the knowing that everything is happening for you, and a mistake can be alchemized as a lesson, as a form of advancement, as an opportunity for evolution. And I think one closed door always opens another. And so I've honestly, I welcome mistakes and I welcome wrong turns, because wrong turns are right turns. I don't think there's such thing as a wrong turn, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. I'm not though, that's the tea. Anyway, another way to tell that your intuition isn't communicating with you, or rather you're not allowing your intuition to communicate with you, is if you're not noticing the signs. Everything is connected universally, and so like I said, a lot of times our guides or our universe, whatever you define this whole thing to be, communicates with us through our intuition, and it will show up in our paths when it comes to repeating numbers or angel feathers or synchronicities that are just too beyond the veil to explain on, you know, like conscious levels, as well as, you know, like animal totems, just little things, even colors speak to us. And so if you aren't noticing the signs, if you are, like we mentioned earlier, too distracted, you're not in alignment with your intuition, because your intuition is your third eye, right? Your third eye chakra is your seat of intuition, and when that eye is open, it's noticing what's beyond the human veil. And so if you aren't seeing those things sort of show up, because essentially those are kind of like checkpoints letting you know, like, hey, you're on the right track. Those repeating numbers, those flowers, those colors that keep popping up are letting you know, like, hey, you're doing this thing and we're proud of you, and keep going. I hope, can you guys hear what's going on outside the balcony? Europe has no regard for sleep. It's really something. Anyway though, if you're not noticing those checkpoints, then clearly your third eye is just not looking. So making sure that you open up your third eye, that you take notes, that you really are consuming and absorbing what's going on around you and noticing, and letting those hunches, those moments of confirmation be validation that you are in a space of being intuitively led, that you are making the right choices, and you are taking the right steps on the right path. Another way to tell that you are not in harmony with your intuition is when your body is rejecting something. Our body, I mean, oh my gosh, if we really stepped back and realized how smart our body is and how much it's consistently and constantly communicating with us, we will notice and realize the ways in which it's rejecting things, right? So if, you know, you are sort of ignoring your intuition and your intuition is telling you, hey, this relationship is anchoring you in an outdated version of yourself. It's keeping you stagnant. It's keeping you in a toxic cycle. And you're like ignoring that because you're being ego-led, or you're just moving through the lesson. Honestly, there's no right or wrong way to do life, but if you're ignoring your intuition, not having healthy dialogue with it, it's gonna show up and manifest in the way your body responds. And this can be whether you're in a relationship that you shouldn't be in, or also I've seen this a lot with like one-on-one clients that I've done. Whenever they're overworking themselves and they know that like intuitively I should not be doing this much work, I should be getting more rest, I should be whatever the case may be, their body will begin to shut down before their mind realizes like, oh, I'm overworked and burnt out. And so it'll manifest in injuries or a lot of illnesses, like, you know, disease is a state of being not at ease with your body. Disease, okay, whatever. The point is that it'll manifest physically. And likewise, you know, if there's a job that you have outgrown, that your intuition is telling you like, hey, if you just walk out that door, the opportunity for you to really step into your true purpose is right there. You're ignoring that because of fear or because of staying safe, or honestly for really earthly matters such as money, which is understandable. Your body's going to begin to tell you this is no longer a place for you, and it'll be a state of discomfort. It'll be a gut feeling. So if your body's starting to reject certain places, certain people, certain things, listen to that, because that's your intuition screaming at you. And lastly, if you believe things are happening to you and not for you, you're in a state of disconnection with your intuition, because like I said, there's no such thing as a wrong turn. Every wrong turn can be alchemized to be a lesson. And if we always trust, if we always come back to the belief that what is meant for you will never miss you, and you always know what's best for you, and your body will always lead you in the right direction as long as you listen to it and honor it and treat it as sacred, then there should be nothing happening to you. Everything is an opportunity, a lesson, a beat to follow. So yeah, I hope that those helped, and I really want to reiterate that building a healthy relationship with your intuition does not look like becoming or evolving into a better version of yourself. It doesn't look like learning these tools or doing certain practices. It looks like coming back to who you have always been. As a kid, I promise you, you never needed to outsource your intuition. You never needed to, you knew immediately when something was yours, when something wasn't, when you wanted to go, where you wanted to stay, what you wanted to do. That dialogue was really sharp. And through conditioning, through the ways in which society and the patriarchy has sort of taught us how to question ourselves and why we should question ourselves, we've been disconnected from that knowing, especially women or female identifying, right? This idea of like, you don't know what's best, so just like kind of sit down and be told at you what is best for you, is such a state of empowerment that isn't your fault, but now it's your choice, and now the power is back in your hands if you choose it to be, to step into a state of empowerment and to a state of intuition. So I hope that this helped, and I hope that you reflect a little bit, live life a little less distracted, a little bit more aware and in tune, and begin to be your own best source of counsel. Begin to simply trust yourself. Being an intuitive person means being a person who simply trusts themselves. So listen to those first hunches. Don't question yourself. Don't people please. I think all of the times in which I've acted against my intuition has been to please another person, and me healing the reason why I have a trauma response to like please people has put me in a much better state of alignment with my intuition. So I hope that this helped. If you liked this or want to experience more of my content, darling, you can visit me at JazminKaileen.com or follow me on Instagram at JazminKaileen. I do one-on-one readings and spiritual counseling and all of the things. And thank you so much to Smudge Wellness for housing my voice, for being such an incredible platform. And yeah, I hope you guys are happy and healthy and well. Bye.